Here we go. First questions. Who were you before Jesus?
So before Jesus, I was a fornicator. I was a idolater. I was an alcoholic. Um, I was addicted to drugs. I was a manipulator. I was a liar. I was a cheater. Very prideful, very arrogant, uh, very much so self-serving. Uh, I spent most of my life trying to see what others can do for me or what I can get out of others. And I use my face as an advantage. Uh, Something that I'm not proud of, but yeah. Uh, Before Jesus, I used to always go to parties. Used to always try to chase the high, chase the vibe. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about what kind of led up to that point. So I lost my dad at 14. Um, he was in California while I was in Houston, and he was shot and killed at a random gas station, shot in the back of the heart, and died instantaneously. I found out through a phone call that was given to me by my mother, and I just had to sit with that, sit with the weight of losing a parent, sit with the weight of feeling abandoned, um, and I didn't know how to handle those emotions. So I just spent many years trying to fill that void, trying to find something that would sustain me. Um, and so I used everything in the world. Um, like I said, I made women idle. I was in and out of relationships, thinking that that would bring me peace or that would bring me comfort or um, I would find completion in that. And so, yeah, I spent many years, more than 10 years, in that cycle of heartbreak after heartbreak, of looking for a relationship to change me, to validate my emotions. Um, and I just found myself more empty after every single encounter. And the more that I was in and out of relationships, the more bitter my heart became. The more I lacked love, the more that I had resentment in my heart, the more that I closed myself off and allowed myself to be more of the world. And I was just caught in a trap of just just loving less.
Is there a specific moment or instance or really deep down in the gutter moment that you found yourself in right when the Lord encountered you? You can bring to mind or share with us.
Mm. Yes. So briefly, I was not in church for many years. Um, in my 20s, like I said, I spent most time partying. I spent most time uh, drinking, doing drugs, and um, my sister got into an accident, and it was because of that accident she almost lost her life. And that situation brought me to the Lord because I wasn't in church, and it was because of her almost losing her life where I knew something had to change. And so, because of giving her yes to Christ and turning her life around, she invited me to Lakewood, which was the church I was going to at the time, and I started being planted in the church. I was still lukewarm. I was still, serving myself or serving two masters, but I was consistently showing up. Um, but after the 2 years, I decided to get baptized, and at the time, I thought it was something fun to do. I thought it was something exciting. I thought I wanted to do it to fit in, and I didn't understand the gravity and the weight of giving God my yes. And so my old pattern showed up, and immediately after the night I got baptized, I fell into fornication. 2 weeks later, I was leaving work, and I remember coming home, and I work overnight, so I was trying to get rest, and I just remember waking up in so much pain. I had a pain in my throat that I can't even describe. It felt like somebody was stabbing me with a dagger in my neck, and I was going to the hospital. I was trying to figure out what was going on. The doctors were telling me one thing, uh, they were saying it's not a big deal, giving me lidocaine to try to fix the problem, but the problem would not go away. And I just remember suffering because I couldn't sleep. And this night of not sleeping turned into days. And I spent 9 days without sleep. And it was in this time where I went through so much suffering and so much physical pain, and I didn't know why. And I was like, God, why am I going through this? Why am I suffering? Why would you allow this to happen? Um, I can't even describe it. It was torture. It felt like my body was on fire. It felt like I couldn't get rest. Um, my body would go into spasms uncontrollably. I would try to take herbal teas to help me sleep. It wouldn't work. Uh, and when I began to cry out to the Lord and ask Him why is this happening, He began to show me in His Word that you can't serve two masters. He began to show me in His Word that you have to crucify your flesh. He began to show me in His Word that you cannot walk in holiness and walk in sexual immorality at the same time. And as I encountered Him in a raw way, it made me realize that my posture wasn't correct, and that there was something that needed to change. And yeah, uh, I, I spent I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. The doctors were doing all type of tests. Uh, they couldn't tell me what was wrong. They did spinal taps. They did CT scans, MRIs. Um, Nobody could tell me what was going on. So I knew it was something spiritual. I knew that I was going through a life or death situation. Um, because if you don't know, 12 days after sleep, you die or you have permanent brain and nerve damage. And so, as I was sitting in the hospital, I was just weeping because I felt like my soul was falling into the pits of hell. Like I literally smelt the smoke of hell. I smelled brimstone. I felt fire. Um, my mom was interceding for me, and there was a moment where she said I did try to sleep in the hospital, but as soon as I closed my eyes, my body went into convulsions like poltergeist. Um, and you know, at the hospital, they have people who are, like deacons or clerics. They come in, they pray with you, and uh, I just kept telling them that there was no hope for me, that I was gonna die, and that God had abandoned me. And after the third pastor came in, he asked me a question that really shifted my mind. He was like, "If you don't believe that God will forgive you and that God is merciful, then why do you keep calling us into the room?"
How did you encounter God in the hospital? Outside of the hospital, how did that encounter look like for you?
So, so after I left the hospital, they gave me, medication to help me sleep. Um, I was on bed rest for about 2 months. Um, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks after that, a doctor from the hospital called me and they told me that they did some scans of my blood work and stuff, and they said that they found a virus, HSV2, in my system, and they said that, um, you know, just good luck, basically. And after that, the recovery road was very hard. I lost 20 pounds in a week. Um, I had no strength. My friends had to pick me up and carry me to church, Lakewood, which is a big church. I feel like God encountered me through my friends at the time. Um, they prayed for me. They laid hands on me. They just uplifted my spirits. Um, they stood by my side through it all. Um, and they spoke life into me. My sister spoke life into me. Because even after that encounter, I felt like giving up. I felt like I was just waiting for a judgment day. And so I feel like it took a while, but I finally gave God my yes when He told me to switch churches. And I didn't really fully understand it. He asked me to go from Lakewood to Let Heaven Come. And He used a lady to tell me, and the Holy Spirit spoke through her. And I think that's when things changed, because I was tired of the fornication. I was tired of the lukewarm Christianity. I was tired of playing church and putting on a performance and not really truly living as a disciple of Christ. And so it was when I gave God my yes to go to church, to a new church, and also to make myself vulnerable, to step outside of my comfort zone and to really preach the gospel like it was meant to be preached. Not at home, not behind four walls, but outside in the world where the people needed the most. And that's where He encountered me, in people and in places of brokenness.
So you would say that like the people we surround ourselves with matters a lot.
I think that the people that you surround yourself with is crucial to your destiny. Momentary decisions have eternal consequences. So if you surround yourself with the wrong people, it can cut your life short. And I know that because many of the people that I grew up with, I had to bury last year. And a lot of them didn't make it out of the environment that I grew up in. A lot of them didn't have people speaking life into them. They didn't have encouragement. They didn't have God rooted at the center. And so I think that is extremely important. And I'm grateful for the people that I have in my life now, because if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be.
I know you've shared some of the battles, but after you joined Let Heaven Come and you started walking more firmly with the Lord, what were some battles that you would say that haven't disappeared overnight?
So everybody struggles with something: strongholds, principalities, and powers of darkness. I feel like for me personally, the main things that have been attacking me my whole life are that spirit of lust, a spirit of procrastination, a spirit of delay. I feel like even after the encounters with God, I still wrestle with my flesh daily to do the things that God has called me to do, to speak when He tells me to speak, to move when He tells me to move. And so I think that's one of the hardest things, is being obedient daily and really truly seeking after Him, because it is a battle, and we need His help. We can't do it without Him.
You mentioned that there were some battles that you found why those battles were
I feel like the things that I struggle with now are generational. I feel like they're passed down from my parents and what my mom went through and the relationships and the choices, decisions that she made. Um, just seeing her, struggle even financially, um, and seeing the verbal abuse, seeing the constant battles in the household, the lack of peace, um, and also like just the giving up on things. I think that's kind of was instilled in me as a child, and I would always start something and not finish it. I would always believe for something and then give up as soon as I would hit one bump in the road. And I just kept asking God, why? Why do I keep going through these cycles? Why do you give me all these visions, these dreams, these business ideas, but I can never see the full fruition of the vision that you gave me? And I think that it's deeper than just having a lack of discipline, right? I think it was something spiritual in nature. And God is the only one that can help me overcome that, and He is helping me overcome some of those challenges. But um, I understand that procrastination is the assassination of all destinations, and that if I delay on what God has called me to do, the assignment that He's given me, the things that He's called me to release, then what good am I to Him? So the weight of that, knowing that there's this heavy mantle of a prophet on my life, I have to give God my yes. I don't have another choice. There's nowhere I can run where He doesn't see. There's nowhere I can hide.
I'll ask you this last question and you can take your time. It's on, who is Jesus to you now?
Well, at first, Jesus was somebody who I called on when I needed something. He was somebody that I saw like as a magic genie, and He would always get me out of trouble. But as I spiritually matured, as I actually walked with Him, as I spent time with Him, I learned that He was more of a father that I never had. He was more of a friend than my closest friends. I realized that He was the true lover of my soul. I realized that He was not just my Savior, but my King, that He was sovereign, and that He gave me directive. He gave me reason for life. So Jesus to me is everything. He's the reason why I get up in the morning. He's the reason why I have faith to keep pushing on. He's the hope that I have when I feel hopeless. He's the strength that I have when I feel like I have no strength. He's my joy in the midst of chaos. He's the only thing that's keeping me together. When everything around me is crashing down, He was my only comforter when I spent all those nights crying and wondering why everybody else got to have a dad. And I realized that every time I got beat for speaking out, or every time I got shamed for praying in public, that He was there through it all. He was always there. On the nights where I could have lost my life, or I almost went to jail for domestic violence. He was there, and he saved me through it all. So he's more than just a help. He's more than just a friend. He's everything. And I realize now that nothing in this world can compare to what Jesus has. There's nothing that anyone can offer me that I would trade places for, because he paid it all. He paid the price for my sins. He paid the price for my mistakes. And he doesn't judge me. He doesn't condemn me. He gives me mercy. He gives me grace. That's what Jesus is to me.
Anything else you want to share?
Yeah. Little backstory. My mother had me at 21 years old. And when she found out that, well, the day she found out that she was pregnant, she got into a head-on collision at 50 miles per hour. She had concussion, third-degree seatbelt burns, broken finger, and a split bottom lip. And in this moment, she thought that she wasn't gonna make it, and she had an encounter with God, and angels spoke to her and told her that it wasn't her time yet. She prayed, and that same day she left the hospital, which doesn't even make sense, because how do you leave the hospital after something like that? But as she came home, I remember her telling me that the phone was ringing, and it was my uncle calling. And she answered the phone, and he told her that he knew everything, and then he told her to sit down. And what he said, it shocked me. He said an angel had came to him, and an angel told him that she was having a son, and that I would be his prophet, and that to call me, to name me Elijah. This was the same day she found out she was pregnant in the hospital when they scanned her vitals. And I was born November 19th, 1994, 9 months later, in a hospital in Los Angeles, California. The same day I was being born on the operating table, the doctor left the room and went to go attend to twins being delivered in the next room. The moment the doctor walked out, she went into labor, and I slid off the operating table, and I was about to die. Luckily, my grandmother was in the room, and she dove and she caught me. So before I even took my first breath, the devil wanted to end my life. And I still don't fully understand why. But I know that there's a greater calling that God has for me. I know that I'm here for a reason. It's a miracle that I'm here. And I know that he has a purpose and a plan for me in Gen Z Praise.